Yo, 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 what is going on, my beautiful brothers and sisters, fellow radiators of love? My name is Jamal Pope, aka J Phoenix. We're going to be talking about that full moon that happened yesterday afternoon. I'm a little late getting this video out, but nonetheless, this is an important one. We definitely need to talk about it, especially since the moon is still in Scorpio at the time of me making this. So we are still very much so in this full moon energy. So let's go ahead and talk about this full moon, shall we? Well, this was a full moon in Scorpio. And of course, we know that the moon doesn't like to be in Scorpio, right? This is definitely bringing forward a lot of heavier, deeper emotions. Things that we probably have been keeping in the den and in the dark for a while, maybe even secrets coming out. This is also dealing with a lot of commitments, and we're kind of having these commitments put in our face, and we're questioning whether or not these commitments are good or bad. Do they need to be transformed? Do they need to go on the chopping block for execution? That's what Scorpio's all about as well. And that's the other thing too. We can be cross examining all of these different things in our minds, all these different emotions, all these different events. It's kind of going through. It's like this weird internal emotional court case that we're kind of going through and having to kind of clamber through all of the data and the experiences, and it does kind of feel like a weird investigation, like we're being cross-examined and cross-referenced and all these different things. That's what made this full moon rather intense, but of course a lot of other things are happening with this full moon. But if we just take the full moon at face value and not consider any other planets, yes, a full moon of Scorpio is sort of like this large reflection point of all of these deeper emotions that we have kind of have kept hidden from the world and kept hidden from ourselves. It's hard to hide things from ourselves, but a lot of times we're able to do that, and Scorpio is very good at that. It's very good at building up these different barriers and to kind of ice people out, so we can ice out emotions, we can kind of suppress things with this kind of full moon. Well, this was not a full moon about suppression. It was about bringing that all of that suppression out into the forefront so we can actually take a look at it. Let's hop into the charts so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So we have, like I said, that full moon that happened at 11 degrees of Scorpio. Now this happened at about 1:27 p.m. Yesterday afternoon. The other thing, of course, interesting about this particular full moon is the fact that we had four other planets involved that were at the same degrees, not 11 degrees, but different degrees. So you have this harmonizing energy. Whenever you have planets that like all hit, like say if you have two planets or three planets at a certain degree, and you look at other planets and those planets to each other aspecting are also at similar degrees, there's like this sort of harmonic like energy. Now that's something that Christopher Witecki at least came up with, so it's something that I like to reference when I'm doing my videos as well, because it does make sense. It shows that there are planets that are kind of on the same page, and multiple different pages. So there's always, our consciousness is kind of focused there. So our consciousness is focused on this 11. You also have Venus and Saturn here at 9 degrees of Gemini and Aries respectively. And of course you have the conjunction of Mercury and Chiron at 27 degrees of Aries, which is interesting because 2 plus 7 is 9. So it's even more, it's even much more of a harmonic like energy. There's even more focused right here. It's almost like the full moon itself kind of got drowned out by all of this nine energy. And of course, nine is about taking action, it's about moving things forward. And there's this element where we want to, but we're not going to be able to really move forward until we deal with the emotional anchor that was this full moon in Scorpio. And of course, 11 being a master number, it's in many ways can be about simply being, and it's also a reflective point because you have 1 and 1, right? It's the first time that you get that, unless you want to count double zero, but we don't really count that. You have the 1 and then you have the other one. 10 would be like a 1 and then like a 0 or a womb or infinite potential. And then when that infinite potential becomes 1, you kind of have this mirroring effect, right? So that's kind of the interesting thing about this. It's like this full moon was in many ways a reflection point of showing us these deeper aspects of our soul that needed to be examined and finally confronted. And this happened with everybody, of course. We're all under these celestial influences. What's interesting about this full moon too is that, of course, in the hours leading up to the full moon, it was at 9 degrees and was making a quincunx over to both Saturn and Venus, creating this yod. So we had this yod building up, the finger of God building up before the full moon. And quincunxes, remember what I say, it's the awkward stare from across the room. It's an awkward energy that's almost in opposition, but not quite in opposition. And usually it's sort of like this weird kind of thorn in our side that we have to address. Sometimes it can be pretty big, sometimes it can be pretty small, but it's definitely kind of a bit of an inconvenience. So, yes, with Venus and Gemini, there are some inconvenient conversations that we're having to kind of unearth in our relationships, in our general surroundings, in our direct surroundings. There are uncomfortable things that were coming up here. Saturn and Aries, this is really about just like, are you even who you are? Aries is very simple. Who are you? Right? But Saturn there is definitely bringing a challenge to that. Right? And there's also a level of like, have we really been in integrity? Have we really been who we are? Saturn in Aries also kind of forces you to grow up very, very fast. Aries wants to be able to have no boundaries and just go and just ram through things, but Saturn does bring boundaries. So this is asking us, there are certain conversations and relationships that we've had, making this sextile over to the Saturn, of course, in Aries. But there have been some restrictions, there have been some boundaries, there have been some rules, and with them quincunxing over to this moon in Scorpio, we have to ask ourselves, have we put ourselves in a position to where we can't really be our authentic self, where we can't simply be? Are we, diluting our true feelings and thoughts on the matter? We are looking at our communication in certain relationships and asking ourselves, are there certain barriers, certain things I can't say? Are there things I probably should have said too? So that brings that other extra element to it as well. And whether or not we are really communicating who we really are, how we truly feel, the quincunx over to this moon is like, you need to address what you are hiding. You need to address what you're keeping in the dark and in the closet, lest these things come out and kind of explode. And that's kind of what they did. We still have all this Aries energy. We still have Neptune. We still have Saturn. We still have Mars, Mercury, and Chiron. Even though the sun is in Taurus, helping us to ground some of this energy and trying to help us to find what we truly find value in, what we truly find worth in. How can we ground ourselves in that sort of energy so we can grow and prosper? It's not one thing to just be go, 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 especially with all these direct planets. But we still have to have some level of structure. We still have to have a foundation, right? And so that's what the sun is illuminating while it's here in Taurus. And it's by itself. Yeah, sure, it has Ceres here, but Uranus is no longer in Taurus too, right? So that's the other thing about it as well. With that fresh shift of this Uranus and Gemini energy, this is definitely bringing lightning bolt conversations kind of coming out of nowhere. Lightning bolt sort of epiphanies are coming out of nowhere. You're realizing situations like what they actually are, what people are actually are like too, because Venus is here providing some influence. This Chiron and Mercury conjunction in Aries, this is a moment that we all have suppressed who we really are in a sense and haven't been able to truly communicate that. And people are speaking from their wounds, from their hurt. That's the other thing about this full moon. Whatever really important conversations were coming up around this full moon, just know that, like, communication wise, everyone was focused on their trauma, everyone was focused on their hurt, everyone was focused on their wounds and speaking from that place. Now the question is whether or not we're going to allow ourselves to overly identify with that part, over identify with the trials and tribulations that we have gone through, overly identifying with the scars, or we can see it as a way to, educate others, educate ourselves, and to evolve and not allow that to become our full identity, but realize that that is just a part of you. That's just a reflection of you from the past. And it can hurt to, of course, look at these things, right? But it's not the full you, it's only a fragment of who you are. But sometimes we like to take certain fragments and we like to blow them up and make them magnanimous. So not only do we have a full moon, like I said, a moon that's debilitated in Scorpio, that's already super intense in and of itself, but you have 9 Venus and 9 Saturn and Gemini and Aries respectively sextiling each other. So opportunities can come up here, and generally sextiles are positive. But like I said, we have to ask ourselves if we are kind of, are these relationships that find ourselves in, are they restrictive at all? Is the communication free flowing? These relationships allow us to really be who we are? And if not, then there's a problem. There's a restriction there, right? We can't even really truly be who we are. And like I said, this Chiron and this Mercury also coming together, it's like, what side are we going to take? Are we going to take the side of just trying to maybe keep the peace? Because Venus wants to keep the peace as well in many ways. Are we going to just take the side of just keeping the peace? But will we suffer? Will our character suffer? Will our authenticity suffer? Will our integrity suffer? Or are we going to kind of play along and just go along with the flow, despite the fact that this thing's about to flow off of a freaking waterfall, right? And this moon, I said the moon of Scorpio too, can be very, very intuitive, even though it doesn't like to be here. It can be deeply intuitive. But that's the thing too about it, is that sometimes it can be so deeply intuitive that you have to take time to crawl into the den and kind of recover for a little bit, you know? And that's the other thing about this. I think that with this full moon, a lot of people's intuitive antennae were up. A lot of people's instinctual antennae were up, and they're blaring. And it's a bzz, 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 bzz. This was an alarm. This full moon was a alarm that you can't ignore. You can't ignore it. And it's like you can't snooze the alarm, right? You can't just ignore the smoke alarm, the smoke detector, because you didn't put batteries in it. If you know, you know. And I've never even understood that, and I am black. So, because I've never had that problem. I've always had batteries in there. But this is one that you can't ignore. And I think that's what made it so intense. Now, I mean, at the current moment I'm making this, we do have that moon here at 26 degrees of Scorpio. And so it's finishing up here in Scorpio. It'll be leaving Scorpio over the next few hours. And what's interesting about this, of course, is that this moon isn't going, well, it might go void, of course, but it is going to, I don't know if it's going to exactly hit Mercury before, it goes into Taurus, but it's getting real close to it. So, I mean, we can just move it forward and we will see that actually, yeah. So pretty much you see that as the moon hits that final degree, it actually will have maybe like a moment of not aspected anything, because Mercury is going to shift into Taurus pretty much as soon as the moon hits 29 degrees. And then once the moon hits 0 degrees, it'll actually make that quincunx over to Mercury right here, because Mercury's just moving. They both move rather fast. So that's the interesting thing about this. You go from quincunxing the Saturn energy, the Venus energy, and then it's going to come over and start to make that same degree over to Mercury. And this is at 0 degrees, mind you. So now emotionally, we got to ask ourselves, this is going to be bringing forth some beliefs, maybe some awkward beliefs about what we learn. Mercury is all about learning and communication. It's very curious of what we've learned about, who we are, our worth, our value, these situations, who we are in relationships. Do we bring a different version of ourselves to relationships than when we are by ourselves, when we are in our private owned company? Or are we the same across the board? Now, I think we all made different adjustments, obviously. I'm not going to necessarily talk to my dad the same way that I would talk to my grandfather or my mother, at least with vocabulary and verbiage and stuff. But because those things would change, right? But the core of who you are, do you change based off of the person that you are with, or do you kind of have a mask on for different people and different versions of your personality based off of who you speak to? I think we all do this to a certain degree. But I guess the disparity between the versions that we bring out to people, I think this is about how can we bring that disparity in a little bit so it's not so off. Now, when you're not oscillating between all of these different versions of yourself, right? It's about being authentic and being you across the board, across the page, across the entire book, if you will, and how that can be unchanging and unwielding, right? Now, I did make some predictions over on my last video, and I did say that at least with some of them, I think that they would happen, after the full moon. I said that majority of them will happen after the full moon. I did get one right because I did say that there was going to be some sort of public breakup or some public relationship drama, and I was correct on that with the whole Klay Thompson Megan Thee Stallion thing, which I think is so. I'm gonna spare you guys my full thoughts and opinions on that because I honestly think it's a bit of a distraction. And anytime that you have any type of celebrity relationship drama, it is a distraction, whether those individuals are truly going through that thing or not. Because everyone thinks everything is a stage now, but I did get that one correctly. And I'm not really surprised either because there's, like I said, we always need some sort of weird distraction. You have these weird different movements start popping up around it and stuff. And I think that that's kind of crazy. The other thing that I did say that was going to happen was that there was going to be some sort of down communication, like a website going down for a time being or something like that. I technically got this one correct, but it's just not, it didn't happen the way I thought it was going to be. It was InfoWars Alex Jones, his website going completely dark. So not the website I was thinking. I was thinking more of like a kind of like a major website or something like that. Which I guess it is a major website because regardless of the way that you feel about Alex Jones, he has set a lot of the groundwork when it comes to alternative media, alternative journalism, and exposing a lot of the darkness of those in power and the things that they engage in. He hasn't gotten everything right, but he's gotten a lot of things right, and he's inspired thousands of people to become investigative journalists. So for his website to go dark during this time is pretty telling. So I technically did get that one right as well. I did also say that there was going to be some type of rebellion based off of hidden conversations. And that one is yet to kind of come to fruition. We'll see what happens over the next 2 weeks, and I'll kind of just go over the next 2 weeks so you can guys kind of see some of the things that are going to be happening as well. But I still am holding on to that one. There have been some hidden conversations that have been coming up between different political pundits and political I guess influencers, if you will, whether or not these things will actually spark some sort of like visual, not rebellion or a visual like riot or something, I guess is something that we'll have to see what happens. Another interesting thing that happened throughout all this is Spirit Airlines is ceasing productions. I thought that one was a very interesting one. I didn't really predict that one, but it does kind of make sense with all this, with Pluto getting ready to retrograde here in Aquarius too. And Uranus, of course, shifting into Gemini. There's a disruption right here. There's going to be a disruption in air travel. And now you have all those people that are going to be out of work. And I don't know if any other airlines is going to be able to absorb a lot of what Spirit was able to do. And it's funny because Spirit Airlines gets made fun of a lot for, I guess, kind of like the quality of their flights, but they've never had a downed plane. They've never had a crash in their history. And they also did provide relatively cheap tickets, especially for like international travel. So the fact that they're going to be gone and its name is Spirit, there's definitely, it's definitely a communication. If you believe that everything kind of if you believe that life is theater and life is a bit of a stage, it's important to pay attention to things like this when they happen. That an airline called Spirit is effectively getting grounded. That's It's not entirely surprising to see something like this happen. And Spirit may not be the only one. We may see this continue to happen. It may just be the first domino to fall, especially considering the fact that Pluto is going to be retrograding here soon. It's going to be the first planet that retrogrades. And then we'll see other ones begin to happen, and this energy starts to pull back and not just be so go 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 go. And these are, like I said, important things to kind of look at. So um, now, of course, on this Sunday, as you see, that's when that moon's going to be fully into Sagittarius and stuff like that. Mercury, of course, now in Taurus. So money talks, baby. Money talks. And, that they're not, mentally, we're going to be more focused on Taurus like things. We're going to be more focused on value and worth and, maybe even our own worth, our own value, and what we can give to the world and stuff. So, but whenever you see Mercury starting to do this, where it's getting, kind of, well, no, Mercury's not going to retrograde here because Mercury just retrograded in Pisces. Mercury is going to retrograde up here. So we still have a little bit before that one. But we are going to start to see planets start to turn offline. Now, the Pluto will be retrograde for probably about 3 weeks to a month before the next planet retrogrades. So, it's going to happen pretty much right when the moon is getting close to it. So, we're going to see that moon is going to go throughout Sagittarius. It's going to go throughout Capricorn the middle of the next week. We're going to see, of course, this Mercury is going to be getting ever so close to the sun. And you see that pretty much as soon as the moon gets to the middle of Capricorn, we see Pluto is going to station retrograde here at 5 degrees of Aquarius next Thursday. So you literally only have, from this moment, at least right here that I'm making this, when I put this out, about 4-5 days, and then bam, Pluto is going to go retrograde. So we're going to be feeling this here on next Friday when this moon actually ends up conjuncting this Pluto here at 5 degrees. So yes, Leo Bear, I see you. I acknowledge you. I acknowledge your existence. I know I took a nap. So we're going to see this moon. It's going to be with Pluto here at 5 degrees. The nodes are also going to be at 5, which is pretty interesting. Mars, of course, over here at Aries, catching up to Chiron, so we're going to be dealing with that. Mercury, of course, within 7 degrees of the sun, and by this time, Venus is going to be at 17 degrees of Gemini. So nothing's really going to be aspecting each other at this point. It's a lot of energies kind of getting closer and closer together before we get to the next lunar energy, the next lunar phase. But this is going to, of course, be building up to that third quarter square to the sun, which we will see the following day here when that moon is going to hit 19 degrees. It's going to hit 19 degrees sometime in the early evening, late afternoon next Saturday. So a week from today, we're going to see that moon hit 19 degrees, making that final third quarter square to the sun leading up to the new moon. And like I said, this I think if anything happens with some sort of, like I said, hidden conversations that come up that could spark some type of like riot or whatever, I do feel like it's going to be, like I said, after the full moon. So, in this next 2-week period, it's going to be just kind of pay attention and look out for different things, right? I would not be surprised. I guess I can make some other predictions, right? Since some of the ones I made actually did come true. But with that Pluto turning offline, like I said, this is a power switch. This is power dynamics. This is going to affect. This going to affect the world. Honestly, Aquarius is usually about the people. There could be, another thing that could happen is like a really bad weather event. A really bad weather event. It was a weird one. Apparently, there was like some earthquakes that were felt around Area 51 or something like that recently, like a ton of them. But we may actually see some sort of weird weather event happen somewhere in the world. I know where I'm at right now in Georgia, we're in like one of the worst droughts we have seen in 20 years. So you have weird weather stuff that's happening with this Uranus and Gemini too. And of course, Pluto being in the ruler of, this being in Aquarius, so that's where Uranus rules and stuff. So we may see some weird weather stuff start to happen, especially now that Pluto is going to go retrograde, and humanitarian efforts may be strained based off of things that are happening right now, mainly the war and how that is restricting the flow of resources to several countries. How Europe is afraid that's going to run out of fuel for its planes and stuff. So, the Spirit Airlines being downed is sort of it's a reflection and sort of an example of how this travel, especially by air, is going to become more restricted, whether other airlines go out of business or they simply don't have the fuel. But Spirit, of course, is a smaller airline, right? But it's pretty well known, and it's kind of memed to hell as well. So that's why it's weird because if this thing is staged, if this all is really just theater and stuff, picking Spirit Airlines makes sense because it's an airline that not a lot of people take seriously, so people are going to shrug. That's still people's jobs and livelihood as well, though. So it's not a small thing. But because of who it is, because it is Spirit Airlines, people are going to probably not take it as seriously. It's kind of like the perfect scapegoat of a company, if you will, you know, to use to kind of lull people into a false sense of security, if you will. So, like I said, because of the restriction of different resources that we are experiencing right now, we may see other instances of, restricted travel, or maybe, like I said, an event pops up that requires us to get to it more in a humanitarian crisis, if you will. But because of the restriction and of flow of like resources and stuff, it may be tougher and longer to recover from these things. So maybe like a hurricane or a tsunami or like a mudslide somewhere, like a massive earthquake or something, right? Some type of humanitarian effort, or like I said, or crisis, or humanitarian efforts could be restricted based off of the current geopolitical landscape of the world. So that's something else that could happen here. Now, like I said, we'll see that moon go into Pisces here. That's going to be happening, next Sunday. Sunday morning, we'll see that moon shift over into Pisces. Mercury and the sun are getting ever so closer to each other, right? Then, of course, as we continue, we'll see that moon. It's going to cross over Neptune. It's going to cross over Saturn here in Aries. We're going to have that Mercury and sun together here at 22 and 23 degrees of Taurus. And really, so by the time that we get to the new moon, Mercury is going to cross over. There is another conjunction later, looking down the road, I think like in a few months, where it's going to be the sun, moon, and Mercury exact. I think that's going to be in Leo, if I'm not mistaken, which is actually very, very freaking interesting because it's going to be close. It's not going to be, well, I don't know if it's actually, no, it might be kind of close to the eclipses too that are going to be happening. I have to look at that chart again, but that one's going to be very interesting. Nonetheless, they are still in very close proximity to each other once we get to the next new moon here, which is going to be happening at 26 degrees of Taurus, right? We're going to have, or 25 degrees of Taurus, actually. So 25 degrees of Taurus with Mercury here at 28. We have another harmonic energy of Chiron and Mars at 28. So there's going to be a lot of quite a bit of edgy energy. Venus is going to be at 27. So there's going to be a lot of edgy energy, kind of feeling like we're at the edge of a cliff, if you will. And, it's going to be about diving into this new world, But we have to remember the previous 2 weeks, the things that we have seen, the things that have been reflected, the conversations that need to have. This is one of those moments where it's like the communication is going to be very loud in your face, and you're going to have some discernment on how to find the truth and all that. I think this is one of those things, too, when it comes to people and relationships. It's like people's actions will tell you who they are, and believe them. Believe them. Believe people when they tell you who they are. All right? Believe people. you know, and they can say one thing and their actions can say another. But pay attention to those actions, because those actions are going to speak very loud. They're going to speak volumes, and it's going to be very important to look at those actions, because that will tell you who that person is, right? You know, communication is people are going to be restricting their communication and diluting their conversation to try and save face. But look at their actions. Look at your actions and see if you are truly communicating through your actions from a place of true authenticity, from the truth. I don't want to say your truth, but from the truth, right? With integrity. Speak with integrity. Speak with impeccability. Right? These are things that are going to be very, very important, regardless of the astrology. It's important to, you know, be as integral as possible, right? But believe people when they show you who they are, right? Believe people when they show you who you are. Sometimes it's easy for us to not do that because we get emotionally wrapped up. We may care for the individual, have compassion for the individual, and so forth. And people can change. People can evolve over time. People can be, you know, taking lower vibrational actions, and then they can turn things around and be more high vibrational. We all do it. But believe people when they show you who they are. And don't just try to stick your head in the sand either, right? So that's what I got for you guys for this video. I know it was a little bit late. I'm surprised I even went 30 minutes. I'm not even gonna lie. I do think it's interesting. Like I said, when it comes to like the predictions and stuff like that, these are just predictions and stuff like that. You don't have to take them super, super seriously. But I did technically get 2 of them correct. So, you know, I would say I got 1 correct, and the other one was a bit of a technical that I wasn't really expecting. And, you know, I guess that's kind of how these things go. You know what I mean? I still think that we are going to see some type of riot, some type of demonstration and stuff like that, because there's going to be a lot of frustration. There's a lot of frustration right now as well. And even some of these riots and rebellions, maybe it's not necessarily in the way where people are taking to the streets, but it's going to be people turning on each other. People that were once allies are going to become enemies, or at the very least, not going to be playing on the same team anymore. So these things could be happening as well, in all different areas too. Of course, I'm thinking a lot of it politically because we live in a rather politically charged climate right now. But, you know, this in general, people kind of switching teams, people going to the other side, stuff like that. You're going to start to see this more and more and more, especially with this Uranus and Gemini energy, which is kind of flipping things around, especially with Venus that's still here in Gemini. Mercury's going to be coming in Gemini very shortly. And especially with all this Aries energy, everything's kind of inflamed, if you will. That was not a good shuffle. I'm going to try to do one more. I want to give you guys at least 1 card for this. You know, we are going to roll with that. And I'm going to just shuffle this way instead. So, y'all forgive me for getting this video out a little bit late. I just hope that this message can assist you on your journey over this next couple of weeks. And of course, you guys will be seeing me around too when I make other random little videos and stuff. I'm gonna try to start posting a little bit more on other places too, like Instagram and TikTok and shit. You know, get those creative juices flowing a little bit more and stuff too. So, yeah. Been making videos for a long time, and even though I've kind of drop off here and there, I always come back to this. I think that's the other thing about this Taurus energy is, what do you keep coming back to? I got the Lover's card, but I kind of almost see this as like having like just love for yourself and love for your own process and love for your own journey, right? This is definitely kind of Beauty and the Beast kind of vibes, right? So it's like, you know, that's the thing too. Can you love yourself as the beauty, and can you love yourself as the beast? Right? Or do you only have love for yourself when you're the beauty? Well, that's not good. That ain't right. Only when you're the handsome prince. So no, we all have jagged edges to us. We all have imperfections and stuff like that. We all have blemishes and stuff too. Those blemishes and stuff like that, they are part of who we are. You know, that is kind of Chiron energy and stuff, and that's the positive thing about Chiron and Aries. It's about appreciating those blemishes and those rough edges and stuff like that. But, you know, the beauty marks, if you will, right? Well, we got to learn to love ourselves even through all that, even throughout the wounding, even throughout the trauma and stuff like that that we may be experiencing. We got to learn to love ourselves, but also not over, be careful to not overly identify with it. There's a balance to this still, right? Look at the opposite energy of Aries. There's a balance to all this energy, right? So that's the other thing about this. But yeah, can you love yourself when you're the beauty, and can you love yourself when you are the beast? That's what it comes down to. And also, of course, extend that out to your relationships as well. So, I got 2 cards. I got the 2 of coin. Oh, no, excuse me, the 10 of coins and the strength card. They did come up reversed, but you can read this both ways. But this is honestly beautiful. This is about having the strength to realize just how blessed we already are. That's really what this comes down to. Do you have the strength to realize just how good you have it? Even when things seem crazy and intense and dark at times, do you have the strength to realize just how much you have, how many resources you have, and how there really truly is abundance? Even though that's the funny thing about it. People are complaining about lack of fuel and lack of stuff like that, and that's why energy prices are going up. But the only reason why we are feeling this crunch is because certain individuals are trying to hoard power and hoard energy. Of course, America's part of this too, right? But there's the lack is artificial. The truth is abundance. The truth is that this earth is abundant. The truth is that you are abundant. It's just that sometimes there are certain levees and dams put in place that make us feel the lack. But don't do this to yourself. No, don't do this to yourself mentally and emotionally. Don't fool yourself into thinking that you don't have when you are truly abundant and you are more than enough as you are right now. And you're with all your scars and all your blemishes and all the blisters and all the beauty marks, right? Love yourself when you're the beauty and love yourself when you're the beast. And of course, look at the relationships and situations in your life. And you have to ask yourself, yeah, you can appreciate people, situations for the beauty in it and the beast part in it as well. But you also have to ask yourself if being around these certain people or situations or individuals, are they having you act more in your beast nature, or are they having you act more in your beauty nature? Is it skewed in one direction or the other? Is there some balance here? Do they truly accept you for who you are, or does it make you someone that you are not? That's what this comes down to, and that's the question we have to ask ourselves with this full moon and over the next 2 weeks. And then once we hit that new moon, we'll know how to move forward and where to change. Anyways, that's what I got for you all. Y'all take care. Stay blessed. I love you all. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace.